Hi, I'm Abby Morgan and I'm a playwright and screenwriter. Paines Plough is really what got me into writing, or certainly making a career out of writing. So it was mid-90s, I was waitressing and working as a caretaker looking after empty buildings, which I felt like I was going to do forever. And I wrote a play that got shortlisted for a competition, and from that, Vicky Featherstone, who was running Paines Plough at the time, she read it and got me in the room and commissioned a play from me. And so that was a really amazing transition to go from basically writing a play from a competition to actually writing my sort of first proper stage play, really. I mentor a lot of young writers now, and new writers, not always young. And the thing I always say is you have to find your champions. And I think most people, I mean, I'm sort of 30 years writing now, and I can look back at my career, and probably my career has been built on a sort of stepping stone, touchstones of about 5, 6 key women, actually, and of which Vicky was really at the start. So I think having your work seen and understood, and having you seen, because I think it's very unique, anything that's creative, actually. It's not like being an accountant, where someone can look at your figures and go, you've added that up wrong, and you don't necessarily have to have a life crisis about who you are. But when you've written a play that may be very personal to you, or certainly is about your worldview, it's a really vulnerable experience. And so when you get someone who really sees your work and actually is holistically interested in you and what you want to say and what's the story you want to say, then those are those kind of running partners you really need to connect with and hold on to. And Vicky was that for me. And I remember going into her office at the time, it was on the Aldwych, and sitting down on the sofa with her, and we just sat and we chatted. And I remember she said to me, "So what do you want to write about?" And I said, I just know I've got this idea of 4 women on a border, and it's on a border of change and on a border of a country, in a unknown, non-specific, but clearly Eastern European country, at a point of change when revolution was about to happen. And what I loved about that, the simplicity of the idea, was that Vicky encouraged me to be as theatrical as possible. So I also made it that half of the characters didn't understand the language of the other. So it meant that although we as an audience could understand that everyone was speaking English, they didn't understand each other. So, and we had a translator who translated in between them, but everyone was speaking English. And it was a brilliant theatrical device, and I think I only got the courage to do that because Vicky was pushing me and encouraging me. And what I always say about Vicky is that she's a writer's director. She always serves the play, and sometimes those are plays that are not entirely complete, and they're plays that are imperfect, and there are plays that may be quite long, and she brings her keen sort of dramaturgical eye to it, but the enthusiasm and the championing of the work that's at the core of Vicky is that she'll drive your play home in the way that you have written it and you want it to be. And I think when you're starting out as a writer, and also as someone who's gone into film and television, which is all about editing, and it's all about what you take out, and it's all about 20 voices in the room telling you can't write that. It's an amazing thing to be with a writer supported in a company that's all about new writing, that's saying, write whatever you want. Don't worry about the audience, worry about what you want to say, and the audience will come with you. And it's a kind of spirit and statement of intent that I've taken throughout my life as a result, and I don't think I would have had that if I hadn't been at that moment in that room with Vicky Featherstone, and then nurtured by Paines Plough at that time, I guess. There's something audacious at the heart. I should be something audacious at the heart of new writing, and that doesn't mean that can be with a capital A and a small a, but we're always trying to, I think in theatre, quite simply, you're in a room with often hundreds of heartbeats, and on a kind of Greek level, you're trying to all get everyone to sort of tune in and regulate their pulses together and be in the room together, and you don't get that in any other creative form, really. Maybe you get that in an art exhibition where you're standing with other people looking at a painting, or in music, but in live performance, it's so specific. It's not like film, it's not like television. And I guess what that gave me very early on is it gave me really simple things, which is it was about being audacious and going, this is the story I want to tell. But you also get to sit in an audience and change it. So when you get to sit in an audience in film and television, it's normally edited and complete. And maybe you sat in the edit, and maybe you can see where things aren't working. It's a different form of making. But the thing about theatre that was revelatory to me was to sit in an audience and see where the play wasn't working, and see where you could hear you know, sweet wrappers and looking at, you know, and sometimes people comment, sometimes people yawn, lots of people looking at their watches, and you thought, oh, the play's dipping. Why is it dipping? So I love those first few evenings, performances, where you get to do that. And I don't think you get that in many environments. And so as a working practice, it was very useful for me to engage, you know, whilst also throwing out storytelling, engage when the storytelling didn't work, and then work out when it did, and work out how to improve it. So it literally changed how I wrote, because I was able to have that kind of feedback loop. But also you have that beautiful 6-week development period, you know, during rehearsal, and that's after you might have had, you know, several meetings along the way to make the play, and so it's so organic, it's so alive, it's so maverick, and it's explosive. You know, you don't quite know what's going to happen, you know, in a way that everything else that I do is all about control. Every other writing I've done subsequently is about control. And something about theatre still, there's something really exciting about that. Weirdly, I've just discovered, revelatory to me, I always go to theatre with people, and I've just for the last, I don't know, 3 to 6 months been going on my own, because I've suddenly thought I need to see more plays, and so I've got last minute tickets. And I've realised what an amazing thing it is, because I don't have an opinion, and I don't share it by the interval, and I don't either destroy a play or overblow a play, so I sit in it. And I listen to other people, but I can totally absorb myself in it. And then I can go away and think about what I thought about it. And it's been such a deeply beautiful experience that it's also made me realise that it's also great to be in the audience as well. Well, you know, I'm so old now. I can bed myself in history. So, you know, I came through when Sarah Kane came through, and, you know, she's still a playwright I look back at. She's still, you know, still think the things she said in interviews are profound, you know. And I think it was Sarah Kane who always said, first rule of theatre, the writer doesn't get a shag. And I think it's a really interesting phrase, because basically one of the pains of playwriting is you actually don't get to go to the party. Because when you write it, you're so in it and you write it, but then you watch everyone else make it, and it's lovely, but you're not on stage, you're not in it, you know, and so you get to enjoy it, but you don't get to fully get involved in it in quite the same way. It's a process of letting go, I think, playwriting, because it's very isolating writing. It's a kind of blistering act of ego, and it's one of the most brilliant, humiliating, humbling experiences, because you are also out on your own, and you sit in an audience, and when it goes wrong, when a line clangs, it's you, it comes to you, you know, so it's confronting. And so to have a cohort of other writers to be able to share with them and lean into them and go, God, you know, and that was what was interesting about going back to the, you know, 50 years of Paines Plough and seeing all of those plays, because you're reminded there are generations of cohorts. So you look at, you know, Duncan Macmillan and James Graham, and then Simon Stevens, who was a bit behind me, who I really admire, you know, and then I've seen more and more writers come through over the years, and they radiate out into the wider community. So you see they make films and TV, and, you know, they go into other areas, they run theatres, but it all starts from just probably that first initial meeting with a creative director or that relationship with the company. So cohorts are really, really important. They are your running partners, you know. They're sometimes they're the people snapping at your heels. They're sometimes the motivator. They're often your chums. You know, I can ring a writer up today and say, how much are you getting paid for that? What commission should I get? You know, so that it can work on a practical level. And you can also, you know, we get stuck as writers. So it's quite nice sometimes to be able to talk to other writers and go, I've got a bit of writer's block right now, help me, you know. So, well, actually, to contradict myself, I don't actually get writer's block probably in traditional form. What I get is the fear. And the fear is just, why is this story relevant to anybody? Who cares? And that can and actually where I find that really happens is when I've seen bad work, sometimes my own, and I'm like, it's not good enough. So I get that's what happens to me. Sometimes the critical voice can be really destructive. But I find often the best way out of writer's block is good work. What I've got is fear about stage writing right now, because I haven't written a stage play for a long time, and so I'm going back into writing a stage play again, and I think stage writing feels very, very hard right now. So but that's because I've learnt the kind of mathematics of screenwriting, and it's a very different medium, whereas for me writing stage plays is like, it's like someone opens the gate and says, go run in the prairie, and you've been a bit institutionalized and you're like, okay, well, I'll stay in this corner and I'm just going to trot around here. And someone's going, no, run across the prairie. And you're like, but okay. And then you run around and you go, what am I meant to be doing? And actually, it's that thing of sitting in it and discovering again. It's very particular to theatre, that. And what often can happen in screenwriting is you can say, I want to write about a man who falls in love with a frog, and they'll go, we're not doing rom-coms at the moment, you know? And so you go, oh, okay, I'll pack that one away. Whereas in theatre, they go, okay, tell me more. And so it's probably going back to that, less boundaries. And you have to start to, and where I start to then look for boundaries is I'll look at plays that work, and I'll look at structures that work, and I'll go, okay, that's interesting. I love The Cherry Orchard. What a great play, what a great structure, what a great theme, you know, God, you know, it's all in the title. The organising principle is in the title. Oh, that's great. Titles are great. That's how I find a play again. So it demands you free yourself from all your tricks, I guess. That's why I find it hard, because I've got a lot of tricks. So I know how to make a line that's going to make you sad, or I know how to make a line that's going to make you laugh. But to make a line that is original or meaningful or is new to me, those are harder to find, you know, in yourself. That probably sounds really cynical. I do really love screenwriting, so I can't. It's not that I don't love it, it's just a different discipline. My mum was an actress and my dad was a theatre maker director. So I always knew, you know, I lived with an actress, so very early on, line learning was a normal part of life. You know, it was a normal part of, we listened to my lines, we listened, you know, from very, very early on. I think it's probably how I learned to read, actually. Because I remember reading really old texts and realising they were old sort of Shakespeare books and things that my mum was clearly, or little, you know, when you used to have little books of plays, that's where they would learn from. So that was probably my first memory. And then I guess with my dad, you know, he was brilliant, chaotic, magical thinker, and so he would often take me to production meetings and design meetings. And I do remember that feeling of the kind of sacredness of the space, because to me it was the space where I could run around. But when rehearsal started and we were meant to go and, you know, get some lunch in the cafe outside or something, my parents would both look at that space, and that space became everything. And I remember knowing that you couldn't be on the stage when that space they were working, and that space was where other people could be invited in, but it was work. So I've always had a very practical view of theatre. I don't see it as something other, and that's the privilege, definitely, but it's just really essential, and I don't understand why you wouldn't have storytelling in your life. And that's what it was for me. It was just, it was like just normal. The thing I love about actors is I'm so knackered by 11 o'clock, and the fact that they can all go and go, let's go to a club, or let's go and have dinner at 11 o'clock. I still find it kind of magical that they have that energy, because they're so wired, but also they've gone through 2.5 hours of, you know, Gorky's Summer Folk, or like, you know, Shopping and Fucking, or, you know, they've done this incredible play, and so they're in it and they're ready now. They've cracked themselves open and they're ready to have a good time. And that's my childhood memory, was that everything started at 11 o'clock at night. So it was, but it was chaotic, you know, it was what theatre is, which is filled with emotion and drama and joy and misery, which is what theatre is, really. Well, my writing day is pretty boring, probably, but I mean, my favourite day is when I don't have any meetings. And it's not that I'm hugely in demand, it's more that if I can fill my day with meetings to stop myself writing, you know, and they're very important. I must go and meet that writer to have a cup of tea. But my day is I have a little flat in Islington, and I tend to get there by 9 o'clock, and I leave between 6 and 7 at night. And so I give a full day would be brilliant. And I do a lot of noodling. I'm notoriously said I love to internet shop, or, you know, I now think I must watch a film in the middle of the day because it's creative, and that's really important. But yeah, I work in blocks. I sort of work in sort of fevered, you know, hour-and-a-half blocks, and then I might have like 20 minutes where I just wander around or read something or do something different. I listen to a lot of music. Then I can be in production, so I'm on set, and I'm exec produce a lot of shows. So I might be on a show, which is, what I do love about screenwriting is, or theatre writing as well, it's just been a while, but there's such a process with it. So you can be in an edit period, which I really love, the edit, where you can really get to see how a piece of work's coming together. And it's the same with that rehearsal period. But even, rehearsal periods, a little bit like being on set, I have a limit to myself, to how much I want to be there. And that's what I mean about slightly letting go. Because unless you are the director or the actor, there's a moment where I think, for me, I don't think all writers feel like this, but I want to step away and leave it and let them get on with it. And then I like coming back in again. It's like you've organised the party again. And it's like, okay, have a good time, kids. I'll be back at midnight, make sure you clear up. It's a little bit like that for me. You want to step away for a while so they properly can have a good time and make it work. And then you can come back and see if it's worked and what they've created as well from it and what they've found in it. So my writing day is very different depending on where I am in maybe a creative cycle. But I've just had a few months where I've just been executing on a show, which has been really nice, reading other people's work, but also then getting back. So I will probably write all morning, have some lunch, have a walk around, and then write all afternoon. But I'm pretty basic in that. I do try and do that every day as much as I can. And then, apart from the times when I'm playing hooky and maybe go and see a matinee or something. Well, there's a mantra I have, but I really hate it. And I think I'm wrong about it. But it has been useful for me. So everything is about doubt. But what I say to writers, there's no room for doubt. And what I'm saying is, don't indulge yourself in it. It's all going to be crap. Just get on. It's a bit like nothing comes of nothing, Shakespeare. Nothing comes of a blank page. I meet a lot of people who say I'm going to be a writer or I want to write, and they don't actually write. And most of writing is just failure. I really believe that. I mean, honestly, I would say 99.9% of my work is failure. I don't think I've ever looked at my work and gone, God, that's good. Never. Not once. Doesn't mean that I don't think the production's good. It doesn't mean I don't think there has got beautiful moments in it. It doesn't mean that I don't think that's a solid show or that that's been entertained or that I've even won awards for it. But I always think it's failure. So that's sort of what drives me. And I think the counterpoint to that is there's no room for doubt. It's like, get your head down, keep going. Don't worry about it now, because the doubt will come in. The doubt will be the critic. I mean, I just pitched an idea to my husband. And I went, it's brilliant. Everybody wants it. It's really good. It's really good. Everyone wants this film. It's brilliant. And he was like, it doesn't work. That whole central conceit doesn't work. And I was like, I think you're wrong. I don't think you're right at all. And I got out of the car, and as he dropped me off, I went, okay, you were right. I don't want to hear it. And sometimes there's that part of you that just to push yourself through, you have to go, just get it down, get the mess down, and then you can see it. And that's why I believe so much in editing, and I believe in rewriting. I think it's so important. The only thing with plays I think are so different is I don't do lots of drafts of plays. I do lots of tweaks, but maybe I do 3 drafts of a play, whereas with a screenplay, I can do 20, 30 drafts. It goes on and on and on and on. Strindberg used to say, he had a lot of physical illnesses, I think, and he used to talk about the importance of writing with a pen was that the blood line that went through from your writing hand goes right the way through to your heart. And he used to talk about the pulse of pain. And I think there is a truth about, it's a bit like knitting, playwriting, is you start stitching, you just got to keep going until you get to the end of the ball of wool. Whereas with screenwriting, you can get several lines in and someone goes, we've got the wrong colour. Okay, start again. Thicker needles. Okay, you dropped a stitch. Good. Whereas there's something about a play which is like start, keep going to the end. There's something about the completeness of it. I don't know how people write plays anymore because I'm trying to work out how to write a play right now. I don't know how to do it. But, I know the methodology for screenwriting, which is you have to write an outline and treatment and several people read it and, or you have to pitch it and you sell it in a room and they go, okay, we'll pay you to go and write the outline. And then you come to write the screenplay and everybody sort of knows the shape and what scenes they're going to be there. But you don't really do that so much for playwriting. Maybe you write a page or a couple of pages, or maybe you plot it out with a dramaturg. But on the whole, you start with a blank page and you go, okay, 7,500 pages later, I need to get to the end. So there's something about playwriting where you just have to start and go to the end. It's a bit like writing a piece of music. For me, you almost have to, it's like a score. And I'm just thinking of the whole score and trying to get to the end of it. The reason why I became a writer is I genuinely couldn't do anything else. I couldn't work in an office. Like all writers, ADHD, I've had that forever since I was a kid, so I could never stay in a classroom. Very unacademic. And so it was the only thing I could do, and it is still the only thing I can do. And when I write, I love that feeling. I go, God, where did 6 hours go? And I think if you write and you come up for air and you don't realise the time's gone, you're probably a writer. What I would say to writers now is you can have it all. Do it all. You know, when I came through, I didn't think, God, I couldn't direct. I'm just really grateful I got to be in the space for writing. And now I'd say you're polymaths. You're the generation, you know, you're filmmakers. Do it. Do it. Don't wait. Do it. You want to direct? Do it. Do you want to act? Do you want to be in your... Great. Do you want to produce your own work? Do it. Because it's a do-it culture now. But also, are you ready to be on your own a lot? Because that's what writing is. And when I say on your own with yourself and your thoughts and driving yourself forward. And if you're not, then that's probably a good idea. You try and direct as well, or you try and produce as well, because creatively that will bring more to the table for you, and you will be part of what eventually all writers get to experience, which is the joy of collaboration. You know, even if we're, you know, antisocial introverts, we get to eventually be in a room with people. And it's a strange career, writing sometimes, but it's equally, you can modify it to be what you want it to be, but you have to be able to be on your own. That's the big thing, because it demands you are on your own. I've probably done 20 different iterations and they're all rubbish. That's where I'm at the moment. I think the thing is, if you used to be able to be a great diver, well, or an average diver, you could dive, and then you haven't dived for a while, you're just going, I'm going to belly flop, I'm going to belly flop, I'm going to belly flop. So the very thing that, weirdly, I'm constantly saying to young writers to do, I'm struggling with myself. So, yeah, and I'm sort of fascinated, because I watch plays and go, oh yeah, okay, they've got a middle bit, and then they have an end bit, and they definitely have a start bit. Okay, it's 3 bits, and that will be a play. Yeah, it's inhibiting. But I'm just about to do something about that, which is sit myself in a room and start again and go, okay, come up with a new idea. I actually think, really, the world feels so overwhelming at the moment, to me personally, and I'm so, I feel so overexposed to so many different lipsticks, different holidays, different, you know, Bonnie Blues, and the kind of latest AI actors, and that I'm quite flooded at the moment. And so I'm trying to get back to what's important and what do I need to say. And maybe what's important is I don't say too much, I just say something. But I feel this sense of something, I've got to say a play that's going to say something. And I'm finding that very intimidating. There you go. So even writers who've been writing for 30 years, they're staring at the blank page or the blank screen. So yeah.